isn't turning out the way I planned. My idea was to document the story of a teacher learning to use improvisation in the classroom to develop creativity in her students and in herself. And I had friends at a school who were all ready to go. And we got started in January. But now, just 8 weeks after we got started, the school is deserted. And I'm the only one left on the project. We did get started, and after a few sessions, I talked with the teacher and the principal about their hopes for this project.
These kids have known each other since they were 5. Many of them have been together in school, and they've formed a few cliques, and some of the kids are getting left out, and trying to think of a way to include everybody. And I think that doing this improv is helping them see each other in a new light, and seeing different strengths that some of the kids had that we didn't know about. And it's surprising to us, and I'm hoping that they'll be more inclusive and more welcoming of each other.
I think that social piece is really a challenge. Kids are put in front of a piece of technology for babysitting, or for they're on their their unit all the time. So teachers are now faced with trying to be flamboyant and trying to bring curriculum to life to compete against that tech. So again, I'm going to go back to the improv on how I feel that observing them play, they never get to do that anymore. Like natural play was provided through this experience, and the value that that's going to bring is so healthy.
The other thing that I have noticed is, for example, in math, we'll do the first math problems are all the same. And then the story problems, and they kind of freak out when they get to the story problems. I don't know how to do that. Well, and I tell them, draw a picture, think about it, look at it in another way. And then they come to this last section that says, explain something about what we're working on. And they just freeze and they can't do it because they think there's only one right answer. And they think, I don't know how to do that. I don't know. We always got to skip this before. And I'm hoping that they'll see that there's more than one way to look at things, even math. And they don't have to have the exact words down there to get the right answer. And to be right isn't just one option. There are lots of ways to be right.
We evaluated what we saw.
I was completely impressed with the amount of play that they were provided within that 45-minute session. And I thought the whole 45 minutes, the students were engaged, willing, showing their character, non-judged, just really having a great time. I myself enjoyed it. Yes.
Today I saw one child who I would have called shy, who I didn't think liked to have any attention on her. But today, when she was asked to get up and throw a baseball in slow motion, she strode confidently into the middle of the floor, and she threw it, and she had her shoulders back, and she just walked back to the audience as if it was nothing. And I thought that when you called on her, I thought she would shrink down in her chair and, refuse to do it. But I was really surprised. This seems to be bringing out a side to the kids that I have not seen. And some of the kids who struggle academically, who don't want to be called on, they can shine in this because this is a totally different arena.
Next, we planned to film the entire class on April 1st. But the joke was on us. I had to reimagine the project, so I reached out to the filmmaker who had filmed my improvisation theater in 2006, and he graciously gave me some footage. Improvisation is basic creativity Once upon a time, there was a gorilla who lived in Africa. It is a tool that we use to get players to bring forth original ideas. I am the evil penguin. Well, why do you want my tail? No matter how unusual the idea or how silly it may be, it's accepted as valid by the group. And so it helps the kids with confidence, it helps them with their self-esteem, it helps them be willing to put forth an idea in a group because they know it will be accepted. Okay. And oftentimes, it's more than accepted, it's played on and made into a great idea, a great story beyond that. This group of kids has actually achieved collaboration. They are brilliant at working together, and they didn't think they would be in the beginning. So we've overcome a lot of obstacles to get them to where they are. Acting improvisation was developed by Viola Spolin in the 1930s when she worked for the WPA and she wanted to unlock creativity in the immigrant children she worked with who struggled with language and culture. Her seminal work, published in 1963, remains the Bible of improvisation theory and practice. Later, her son, Paul Sills, started Second City in Chicago. And although the foundation of comedy and acting improv is the same, I feel it's different. When I work in comedy, I feel pressure to be glib and funny, which makes me self-conscious. But acting improvisation is often played silently, and this gives me the space to notice when I'm in resistance and to wait for ideas to arise without forcing myself. It makes me self-aware. My favorite game is the one I begin every new session with. I call it Make a Letter A, and I believe it was created by my mentor, Bill Purkis, who studied with Viola Spolin and taught acting at Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa, California. I usually hold a clipboard so that I have something to look at other than the students, and I announce the problem. Without talking, using everyone, make a letter A. First, they look at me like I'm crazy. Then they look at each other like, she's crazy. But within minutes, they will have solved the problem. And the many skills they use are new to most of them. The opportunity to watch, consider, and act as a part of a group is liberating. Viola Spolin called this creative freedom. My theater provided programs to students and teachers through city recreation, after-school programs, and the Orange County Department of Education. In 2006, my idea was to work with kids to help them develop their creativity, but I learned that they don't really need any help. They are natural improvisers. They just need a space to play. So I began considering how I might help teachers create that space, and I asked my friend Espy about it.
I'm most familiar with elementary education classrooms, because I work with elementary education teachers and people who want to be teachers. And what I have been seeing more and more is with the move towards standardized testing and accountability, that the curriculum is getting narrower and narrower, and therefore the teaching becomes much more narrower and narrower. And I think that's where you start to lose out creativity. You start to lose out on other ways, alternative ways of looking at a problem, alternative ways of expressing, alternative ways of demonstrating what you do know.
And Espy's ideas resonated with mine.
I'm grounded, very grounded in understanding and embracing and affirming diversity. And in diversity, just even the word means that there are many, many different little ways that you can approach life, that the way that you can see life. And it comes from your own cultural experience, it comes from your lived experience. So creativity, I think, is just a natural outcome of knowing who you are, allowing a piece of your culture to shine through in the way that you express, a piece of your values or your life to emerge in the poetry that you create, in and then and to share that lens, that view with others, I think is an expression of creativity. In my opinion, the classroom that has a climate and a community built into this, and developed and nurtured by the teacher as a community of learners where everyone is accepted, everyone is a learner, even the teacher, even I am a learner. I'm learning, I make mistakes. You're learning, you make mistakes. We all in this together. I'm not the expert, but yes, I'm the boss, but you know what I'm saying? We're all in this together. And I think those kind of environments where you're included, you're accepted, you're nurtured, you're valued, those are the kinds of environments where children thrive and they succeed.
In my research, I found creativity in education arose in global awareness by the first and still most popular TED Talk. Sir Ken Robinson, who was knighted by the Queen for his work in creativity in education, takes issue with standardization. He reminds us that education as it exists today was developed in the 1800s to meet the needs of industrialism, and it has not significantly changed since then. This doesn't make sense. We are no longer an industrial economy. We are global, we are diverse, and we are faced with challenges manufacturing cannot address. Although creativity isn't valued at school, it is valued in the workplace. Since the beginning of this century, business leaders identify creativity as the top competency needed to address our changing world. Teachers and students are stifled by standardized curriculum. Practicing creativity could free them to develop new relationships with each other and with knowledge.
This would probably be something that I would normally think would go at the very end of the day because they're all hyped up and then I can just send them home. But the way it fit into our schedule, we have about a half an hour afterward, and this totally surprised me. We finished up with our improv, we put the room back together, and then I said, take out your writing composition books. And they focused, they sat down, they got to work, and I would have expected it to carry over into the next subject, but it didn't. They were able to set that aside, and it's almost like they got out their wiggles and they were ready to move on and be serious. I was not expecting that at all. And that's happened twice now where we had to switch gears into something that was more of a quiet, working independently time, and it blew me away.
Really, I think mostly the being able to observe and react with emotional social cues as opposed to just being able to be told or instructed. There was a lot of thinking prior to having to improv, which I think is so valuable because it's not right there. They're not being told. They're observing body language, observing even your whole movement to create their thought on what they were doing, the guessing of who am I. I just really think that that's going to be so valuable. We don't clue into that in teaching, and it's a huge life skill.
Before the school shut down, Tricia asked her students to film themselves making an argument about whether the class should continue with improvisation.
What worked and what didn't work is pretty fun, even though it's sitting there talking. It's still a different way to use your brain and communicate. It may seem the same, but it's a different way to communicate, and I think if we had to stop, I would be pretty sad because I love improv.
So that's why we should do improv, and that's the best because it's a good reason, because you should keep learning, and then if we didn't, well, we would still learn, but it wouldn't be as much fun.
I think we should keep improv because improv is a fun way to interact with people in ways you never would think of, and it's a good learning process because it teaches self-confidence.
Through this experience, I think we are learning how to communicate with each other without even saying anything.
It's good for your brain because you get to communicate different ways and quietly instead of loudly, and that's good.
Trisha also shared her own experience.
Yeah, so when we were playing ball with the baseball, I noticed a lot of kids were catching it and throwing it, and they weren't really doing anything with it. They just seemed to be getting rid of it as fast as possible. Some of them, not all of them. And I thought, well, let's just change it up a little bit and add another dimension. And so I just stood there quietly, but I started warming up my bat. And a few of them noticed me and started laughing. And then eventually somebody threw it to me, and I hit a home run.